Welcome to the last video in this lesson on the structure and function of the cardiovascular system. You can take a deep breath. So in this video we're going to wrap it up by talking about the venous compartment. Okay? As you guys know from the previous videos, the pressure in the venous compartment is pretty low. And in fact, in the vena cava, it's not much above zero. I mean, when you look at the minimum pressure in the right ventricle of the heart, it's really low, okay? So, nevertheless, it is higher than the right ventricle of the heart, don't get me wrong, but it isn't much higher. And you might even argue it's not measurably higher, but it has to be higher, otherwise blood won't flow, okay? That low pressure presents, with a high volume, by the way, presents certain problems with maintaining flow. One way that you can do that at low pressure is by adding one-way valves to the vessels. And that's what you see here in the bigger veins, okay? These valves really function a lot like the valves in the heart, okay? They're one way. These will allow blood flow this way, but not this way. If the pressure here is higher than the pressure here, this valve will close and will not allow blood flow back that way. It only allows blood flow this way, very similar to the one-way valves in the heart. So what you do with these valves is you keep blood flowing toward the heart and not back toward the feet, for instance, or something like that. All right? Another characteristic of this compartment, which really helps, is the fact that the compliance of the vein is really low, and it's more or less constant in the physiological range. The compliance is high relative to the arteries and constant in the physiological range for both, more or less. And because this compliance is high, you can hold a large volume of blood at a relatively low pressure, and so you have a nice reservoir for blood there, all right? And that's really helpful. This high compliance can have consequences, however. Have you ever gotten out of bed and just jumped out of bed and all of a sudden you were really dizzy? Well, the reason is because of alterations in blood flow in your cardiovascular system. And it's really a result of the fact that the compliance of your veins is so much higher than the compliance of your arteries and the other vessels. Well, the arteries. So let's look and see what happens when I go from lying down to standing up, okay? So if I'm lying down, then my feet are pretty much at the level of my heart, and I have a blood pressure of 100 pretty much everywhere, and I have a blood pressure that's pretty low in the vena cava here, okay? Now when I stand up, all of a sudden, I have columns of blood pushing down on my feet. I have gravity pulling blood down, okay? And because the gravity is pulling the blood down, the pressure is actually higher the farther I go below the heart, the bigger the pressure is, because the gravity is pulling down and the blood is pressing down on my feet. I have columns of blood pressing down on my feet. The pressure in my arteries is higher in my feet when I'm standing up than it is at my heart. Now notice the same thing happens on the venous side, okay? And the pressure increase is pretty much the same. It's 150 millimeters of mercury here. It's 150 millimeters of mercury here. So I still have blood flowing from high pressure to low pressure, okay? From arterial to vein. But the pressures in both are higher in my arteries and veins in my feet than at the level of my heart. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it doesn't affect blood flow. The difference in here is 100, 250 minus 100, that's delta P. 100 minus 0, that's delta P. But what it does do is it increases the pressure in these veins, the total pressure, and your veins blow up like a balloon. Your arteries blow up like a balloon too, but they don't blow up much. They're big muscular things, and they've got really low compliance. And so they don't stretch very much, but your veins stretch a lot, okay? When that pressure goes up, the volume goes up a lot. So you've got blood continuing to flow here, but it's increasing the volume in the veins in your feet. So we get that pressure increase And now that pressure increase on the venous side is causing a big increase in volume here, okay? And that's because we have a pretty high compliance. Well, where's that blood coming from? It's coming from flow through your feet, okay? So that blood is coming across the capillary bed, and instead of being returned to the heart, instead what's happening is it's increasing the volume in the veins at your feet. The low compliance is with the high pressure means a higher volume. The blood, the extra blood volume is coming from the blood flow here, okay? So blood that's accumulating here and increasing body volume isn't being returned to your heart. And so you get a decrease in what's called venous return. And if the blood's not being returned to the heart, then it can't be pumped out. If it can't be pumped out, then it can't make its way to your brain. If it can't make its way to your brain, you get dizzy. And with some people, if they have orthostatic hypotension, they pass out. Okay? People with orthostatic hypotension don't respond well to this. And the drop in cardiac output and the drop in flow to the brain is such that they actually pass out. So this has consequences. It causes you to get dizzy when you stand up suddenly. And it causes some people with disease to pass out, right? So it's not just a trivial point. It actually, there's a reason we teach it, okay? And that's one reason why we teach it. All right, that's all I got for the venous compartment, and that's all I've got for this lesson. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you guys in the rooms.